If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by what the Lord was asking you to do, well, you're not alone, and I'm sure your kids have felt the same way. Today we're going to talk about Doctrine and Covenants sections 30 through 36, when the Lord tells his own people some things that seem, well, pretty overwhelming. But we're going to learn his counsel to them and how it can give us hope in our lives. And at the end, I'm going to be sharing a fun activity that you can do with your kids and teens to help them learn by doing the Lord's counsel in these sections for Come Follow Me. In Doctrine and Covenants, section 31, verse 3, the Lord speaks to Thomas B. Marsh when he says, "Lift up your heart and rejoice, for the hour of your mission is come, and your tongue shall be loosed, and you shall declare glad tidings of great joy unto this generation." The important thing to know about this is that Thomas had only been a member for less than a month. He knew next to nothing about the gospel. He knew very little, and yet the Lord called him to leave and to go preach it to the world. If anyone ever felt unprepared or unqualified, I'm sure it was him. Ezra Thayer and Northrop Sweet also get similar counsel. They're told in Doctrine and Covenants section 33, verse 8, "Open your mouths, and they shall be filled, and you shall become even as Nephi of old, who journeyed from Jerusalem in the wilderness." This week in Come Follow Me, we learn about several people who were called to go preach the gospel, and yet the church had only been a church for a few months. None of them were qualified. None of them really knew what they were doing, and yet the Lord promises, "Open your mouths, and they shall be filled," just like Nephi of old. Well, what does that mean? After Nephi's family left into the wilderness, his brethren were outside the city gates waiting for Nephi to go try again to get the plates. They had already failed. Laban wanted to kill them. And yet Nephi says, "And I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand the things which I should do. Nevertheless, I went forth." Nephi really didn't know what he was going to do. Was he qualified? No. He was up against someone who could easily kill him, who had an army at his disposal. Not being qualified, not having really a plan, he just went forth, trusting that the Lord would give him direction and empower him to do what he needed to do. And that was exactly what the Lord did, and exactly what he will do for these brethren in these verses, and what he will do for us. When he calls us to do those things that we don't feel qualified for, we don't know how it's going to work out or what we're going to do. As long as we trust him and we make our best effort to go forward, to follow the promptings of the Spirit, he will guide us and he will make a way. In section 36, verses 2 and 3, the Lord instructs the brethren that the Holy Ghost will teach them the peaceable things of the kingdom, and then they will declare it. In other words, you don't have to understand everything in the scriptures right now. You don't have to know everything you're going to teach, but study the scriptures. The Holy Ghost will teach you what it means, and then you can teach it with others. Sometimes we're only given a small step ahead. We just keep moving forward, and the Lord teaches us and guides us as we go. In Doctrine and Covenants section 33, verses 12 through 18, the Lord tells us a few more things we can do to help us in this journey of faith. He says that we should remember the church articles and covenants to keep them. In other words, try to do our best to keep the commandments and do what we know is right, to follow the things that we have learned. He also continues on to tell us that the Book of Mormon and the Holy Scriptures are given for our instruction, and that the power of his Spirit will quicken all things. In other words, we read the scriptures and it's the Spirit that will help us understand them and help them come to life and be powerful in our journey. In verse 17, the Lord continues that we should be faithful, praying always, and lets us know that he will come soon. There are so many things in this life that we will be asked to do and we may not feel qualified for, but it is in by doing them that we become qualified. The Lord teaches us step by step. Nephi did not have all of the faith he needed before he went to get the plates. He gained it as he did, and so will we. In this next activity, we are going to learn by doing how we exercise this faith, and that the blessings come as we do it, and not always before. For this activity, all you'll need is a few small treats. Now, take the bowl of treats by yourselves and say to your kids, "Open your mouths and they shall be filled." Now, probably they're not going to do anything, so just say it again and again until someone finally opens their mouth. Open your mouths and they shall be filled. Open your mouths and they shall be filled. As soon as someone opens their mouth, walk over and take a small piece of candy or whatever your treat is and put it in their mouth. Your other kids will catch on pretty quickly, and as they open their mouths, put one in their mouths. At this point, you can share that the Lord is teaching us that sometimes we have to have faith before we see the evidence, before we see the miracle, just like they had to open their mouths before the candy showed up. The brethren in these sections in the Doctrine and Covenants had to open their mouths when they didn't always feel qualified and they didn't always know what they were going to say. But once they did, the Lord taught them and they understood so many things. And that is how they grew in the gospel. So it is with us. The Lord will ask us to do things that might seem hard. We don't know if we're strong enough, if we're going to be able to do it. But as we do our best, as we try, as we open our mouths, so to speak, as we take that step of faith, then is when the miracles come. Then is when the Lord teaches us what we need to know and gives us the strength so that we can do what we need to do. Once you've completed this part of the activity, you can pair people off and let them take turns doing this with each other. They can say, "Open your mouths," and they will be filled. And as they do that, they can toss the candy into the other person's mouth. Now, the contest is to see which pair of people can get the farthest apart, or if you only have two people doing it, just to see how far apart you can get and still make the candy in the other person's mouth. Now, obviously, the other benefit of this activity is that you're helping your kids remember that when we have faith first, when we open our mouths, then they will be filled. Then the miracles will come. Every child learns so differently. Some kids learn very well just sitting and listening, and others need to be learning by doing. So if you'd like to learn more about that, be sure to check out in the description. I do have a free class on learning styles of kids and teens that I'd love to have you join me for. If you had fun with these activities, I hope that you'll consider subscribing so that you can have more fun with your kids, learning by doing and doing things that help them grow in the gospel from the inside out.